What is poppin', people? Welcome to the ASTROLABE, Friday night edition. The last day of the week, the last day of the month, and a wonderful evening for us to experience the greatness that was the absolute obliteration, smackdown, tag teaming of the Rat. I refuse to call him the Rat King. There's nothing kingly. Don't denigrate the term king by associating it with the fiction that is that little Ukrainian midget. He bit off a little more than he can chew. The rat got trapped, and it was beautiful. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about yet, oh man, I am so glad that I get to be the one to introduce you to this story. But first, we got a couple other things to get to. We'll spend quite a bit of time on that, and then JD Vance kind of missed in all of the hullabaloo today. Was JD Vance giving a great speech at the Catholic prayer breakfast, and so I thought, you know what, I was just piling up highlight clips from it, and I was like, you know what, screw it. I don't got a lot of other stories just immediately waiting to be talked about right now, so let's just watch it. It's only 30 minutes. We'll sit there and watch it. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. And then I've got a couple Peter Thiel related articles and a brief clip to play later. We'll get into some controversial stuff. But first, do me a favor, hit the like button. And it is Friday night, so that means we are going to be watching a movie in the King Pill Discord tonight. We'll be watching Fury. You don't want to miss it. Come join us, kingpill.com. Go get signed up. I'll be hopping in there and kicking the movie off shortly after we get out we finish the stream here. So this stream should go for 2 hours or so, hopefully, and then we'll head on over to the King Pill Discord and watch Fury together in the voice chat. Let's see. Was there anything else? I've got some other tabs here that I need to deploy. Let me see if I can actually, let's do this here real quick. Let me vamp for a moment as I pull some of these out. In the pre-show cigarette, I found a few more clips that I wanted to get into, and so I want to pull them over to this tab, and then we will get started. Got stuff about how the man decides to dress himself. We've got a new moniker, potentially, for Marco Grande. We'll get into that a little bit later. But let's get started here with a wee bit of slop. Did you know that you're allowed to just learn how to play Freebird on a lute and record a video of yourself and post it on the internet? You can just do things now. Under Project 2025, we are going to be bringing back taverns and lute players who sit there and regale us with the epic tunes of our country's history. That's incredible. That dude has got some skills. Okay, Mount Wintergreen, little Alp, little Mount Wintergreen Alp. This package is not wanting to come apart for some reason. Oh, there it is. I just had to yell at it for a second. All right, let's get the lip pillow installed. Ah! Oh, that's good. Oh, that one's... Okay, that's number 2. I can tell already. That's number 2. Oh, so number 1 is the tropical fruit. Number 2 is the mountain wintergreen. Woo! That's zingy. I like it. Let's... I'm a sucker for these sorts of prank videos that that turn into that have a good ending. The ones that don't, like, I think those people need to be put on a rack and placed in the town square for us to throw things at. But the ones that turn out well, those ones are fun. Like this.
You got any money?
Yeah.
You don't have any money.
Yeah, take some money.
Now you got some money.
You can't walk around with no money.
Go on, get out of here. Just quick question. Do you have any money?
I don't have any money.
Can you please give us some money?
I don't have any money. I'm sorry.
Oh well, hey, let us not like stress you out.
Take some money, bro. Take some money.
Take some money. It's $100. Take it.
You said you don't have money?
You said you didn't have money.
Take it.
Some money.
Okay. Oh, really?
Do you have money?
I don't have any money.
Well, now you do.
Thanks, man.
No worries, man.
Thanks, man.
Where are you visiting from?
I'm from China.
Enjoy that.
You're so kind.
Go and spend it at the brothel.
Okay.
Have a good day. Get out of here, brother. Take care.
kind.
Stay
Thank
safe.
you.
Nah, no worries, man. Have a good one. Have a good one. Take care. Take care.
What we're gonna find out is that these guys were sponsored by USAID, because that seems like that's basically the business model. Jonathan Hemingway says, Matt, I've been trying for months to get my brother to watch the stream. Tonight might be the night, with fingers crossed. Well, Mr. Jonathan Hemingway's brother, if you're watching, welcome. Join the live chat. Pile on in. The water's nice. The shit posters are dialing up their energy. Straight Busher says, just got an herbicide ad midstream. First of all, gay. Second of all, so I've seen a few people who've been complaining about ads lately, and I thought, so it gives me the option to plug in my own ads manually. And so what I did is I set it so that it does not, it gives me the option to plug them in manually, and then I just don't plug any in. It'll pop up. It gives me a little pop-up. It'll happen here in, 8 minutes in? Maybe next 3 to 7 minutes, somewhere in there, I'm going to get a little pop-up that says, now would be a good time to put in an ad. And I always go up and I close that ad. But people have been complaining about getting ads lately, so I decided to set it on where it's going to actually do ads automatically, but I put it on conservative, so it should interrupt the least. And give me some feedback. Let me know if the ads they increase or if they decrease. Because if it's automatically putting them in there, maybe if I set it to conservative, it'll just only put a few. I'm trying to do my best for you, for those of you who won't just pay for an ad blocker or just do the Google subscription. Just give Google your money. That's what I do. I wouldn't be able to survive with it. There's no possible way. I consume 2 to 5 hours of streams on YouTube a day, and if there was ad blockers, or if I couldn't just put the phone in my pocket and walk my dog or whatever, I would be crippled. So I've just accepted that I'm going to be giving them my money. Let's see. Okay. This one here is a submission from Mr. Politically Catholic, who shows up in the chat every now and then. He says, new Final Destination movie really outdid itself.
You got the Ambien?
It's a 2-hour flight.
Yeah.
Hello, this is your captain, Tiffany Jones speaking. Welcome aboard Flight 428 to Dallas. We're just waiting on ground crew to load the last few bags. We should be pushing back shortly.
Did the stewardess just call herself the captain?
I don't know. I'm trying to find my Xanax.
Hey, Captain Tiffany here again. Ground crew is all finished. Flight attendants, prepare for departure.
The captain's a woman?
Are you serious? It's 2024. Women can fly planes.
Honey, this isn't an iPad. This is the real deal.
Captain Tiffany again. I almost forgot to mention I'm accompanied today by First Officer Morgan Brooks. And oh, wow, would you look at that? It's an all-female crew today. You're in good hands. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the skies.
Babe, we gotta get off the plane.
Will you relax? They're professionals.
Yeah, so was Amelia Earhart.
That line at the end made me giggle. I haven't been one of these like, oh, I'm never going to fly again. But the more of the stuff I see, I'm being successfully propagandized into just driving everywhere. Honestly, it's better anyways. You get to see the country. Go see the country that you live in. See the sights, enjoy the scenery. It's a wonderful thing. I enjoy them. All right, I kind of go out of my way to not just try to pick fights with lol cows on the internet, but I couldn't pass this one up. This is every once in a while you get one of these guys that just starts becoming a parody of himself. I'm sure it's going to happen to me eventually. The internet's strongest, most ardent expositor of the Talmudic worldview, Adam Green, is convinced now that that Trump is a Jewish agent of the Antichrist, because he is getting rid of the penny. Trump fulfills Talmudic messianic prophecy by getting rid of the penny. It's going to be biblical. This from Sanhedrin 97a. Alternatively, the Messiah will not come until the peruta will cease from the purse. Peruta is a term from Jewish law referring to the smallest unit of currency in ancient Jewish monetary systems. Odd that he would take his screenshot from ChatGPT to post it on Twitter. I guess we can't all be purists. Trump says he has directed U.S. Treasury to stop minting new pennies, citing rising costs. You hit it here, guys. The latest evidence. Trump is an agent of the Jewish state because he's abolishing the penny. Can you top that? Can you come up with a better case than the fact that he's abolishing the penny? It's all over, bros. Anyways, of course, Jews have a prophecy that involves pennies. Wait. TC says, always heard vague lore about Adam Green, but I have no idea who he is or what his bit is. That's his bit. You just saw it. You get Adam Green's bit now. I have never seen someone... I thought, maybe listening to like 5 hours of this guy isn't enough. Maybe I just got the streams where he happens to be talking about this issue, and maybe you could branch out a little bit. No. I have not seen a single person on the internet that spends more time arguing for the worldview of the Talmudists. He thinks he's doing it because he hates them. He hates Christianity because Christianity is a Jewish psyop. This is the sort of character that we're dealing with. And every single debate is just him arguing for the worldview of the Talmud. He's just saying, oh, this is all real, it's just bad. And you're bad because you don't realize that you've been suckered in by this extremely very real thing. It's probably the most ironic character that I've ever seen. But he's entirely sincere. Anyways. Atlas Intel, I believe, was the most... accurate pollster in the most recent election cycle. It's one of the more accurate ones at the very least. They just released this poll on image of U.S. political leaders. Do you have a positive or negative image of the following politicians? So going from the bottom, the one with the lowest positivity rating, but that's because he also has easily the broadest don't know rating, is John Thune. He's actually net positive. Then, he's -4. Sorry, I was reading it backwards. He's -4. Then you've got Hillary Clinton, who is the most unpopular person on the list, second most unpopular person on the list, only to Joe Biden. Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are the next most unpopular. Mike Johnson actually has the lowest unpopularity rating among him, Trump, and Vance, which is kind of interesting. Vance is the most positive image character in American politics right now, at least of these major characters. Donald Trump is right on his heels. Did you think that we would see the day where Donald Trump would be significantly more popular than Michelle Obama? I remember people were trying to convince me that that Michelle Obama was going to be the replacement for Joe Biden and that she was just going to soar into office. Remember that? Now, like, people don't even really get all that worked up when you make a joke about Big Mike. They're just kind of like, oh, yeah. Like, that political career is over. She's not going to do anything. Every time she goes anywhere, she's just going to amplify the Big Mike commentary more and more and more. The only thing she could do is just kind of disappear. Okay, so let's talk about this wonderful, glorious thing that happened today. But before that, just to properly set the context for this, for the type of man we're dealing with. So this is from Conrad over at World War Now, highlighting this report from Ortho Christian. Ukrainian intelligence just got caught recruiting terrorists and providing them with an IED to kill an Orthodox Christian bishop while he worshipped at a monastery in Moscow. This should really be the nail in the coffin for any Christians still supporting this evil regime. And there isn't the particular detail. Yeah, there's a particular detail I want to pull out of this. So let me go to this article. Ukrainian terrorist attack against Metropolitan Tikhon of Crimea prevented in Moscow. Metropolitan Tikhon is well known as Vladimir Putin's personal confessor. That's the connection. That's why he would be targeted with something like this. So the FSB prevented a terrorist plot against His Eminence Metropolitan Tikhon. He is author of the modern Russian religious classic Everyday Saints in English. According to the FSB, the attack was planned by the Ukrainian Special Services, for which they recruited a Ukrainian and a Russian citizen, both of whom are graduates of the Sretensky Theological Seminary in Moscow, where the attack was intended to take place. So these were graduates from the seminary. But it gets worse. During the investigation, FSB officers seized a homemade explosive device and 2 counterfeit Ukrainian passports with photographs of the detainees and altered personal data, which were to be used to flee Russia after the attack. The seized items can be seen in this video here. The suspects, Denis Popovich, 27, a Ukrainian citizen from Kiev, and Nikita Ivankovich, 28, a Russian citizen, confessed that they were recruited by an employee of the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine in mid-2024 to help plot the murder of Metropolitan Tikhon. In December, an IED was delivered to them through a dead drop intended to be used while Metropolitan Tikhon was at Sretensky Monastery in Moscow. His Eminence is the rebuilder and former abbot of the monastery and often visits it. The planned explosion would likely have killed or injured anyone located in the Metropolitan's vicinity. Here's the ugly. This is both Popovich and Ivankovich are graduates of the Sretensky Seminary and know the territory well. Further, Popovich was until being detained, Metropolitan Tikhon's longtime assistant and subdeacon. He was initially recruited by Ukrainian authorities and was tasked with recruiting a partner, which turned out to be Ivankovich, who was serving as a reader in a Moscow church. In planning the attack, Popovich was able to take control of Metropolitan Tikhon's Telegram account and receive information about his trips. According to Ivankovich, the initial assassination attempt was thwarted when Popovich was detained on January 13. Another attempt was planned for late this month, though Ivankovich was also detained in mid-February. In his confession video, Popovich says that the Ukrainian Special Services threatened to kill his family if he didn't cooperate with the plot. Popovich's father is an archpriest of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church and lives with the rest of his family in Kiev. The Russian FSB also found 73 Ukrainian contacts on Popovich's telephone, including those of a border guard in the Ukrainian military and a woman who worked in the Ukrainian Army Press Service. A criminal case has been initiated against the two detainees under the article of the Russian Federation's Criminal Code on preparation of a terrorist act and illegal trafficking of explosive devices by an organized group. If indicted, the two young men may face up to 20 years of prison. Now, it's things are so bad over there that either one of these stories could be true. Either one of the possible stories here could be true. And both are just equally horrifying. One of them is that His Eminence's personal assistant turned on him and was going to bomb him at the monastery. Or the alternative explanation is he was blackmailed and his family held hostage to get him to go do this to a man he loves. Lord have mercy on his soul in either case. This is the Ukrainian regime, which is really just a puppet for the British and Europe and more broadly continental European establishment. This is how they are operating. That is the context for what Trump and Vance just did to him. This is the monastery Ukrainian intelligence was attempting to blow up with Metropolitan Tikhon inside. It's a beautiful and holy place. Thank God their evil plan was thwarted. This is Conrad himself at this monastery. Imagine assassinating a bishop in a monastery. This is the sort of regime that we're talking about. So, from the very moment that the little rat showed up, Trump was mogging him. It seems very clear that, to me, we'll go through this whole story, but I'm just going to say at the outset, to me, this was pretty clearly a setup. Not that every single detail of it was planned, but that this was an expected potential outcome. Rob says that's just evil, no military or political benefit. The political benefit there is seeking to induce Russia into progressing forward, creating a casus belli for Russia to escalate, to give them an excuse to escalate. That's what it is. And to try to shock and demoralize the Russian people, which it would do the exact opposite. But this is how demon-possessed people behave. And the demons are having a heyday over there right now. So here's Trump meeting with Zelenskyy when he first shows up.
Ready close? How are you? Ready shut?
He's all dressed up today.
President Trump, what's your message to Vladimir Putin, sir? President Trump, you got a copy. President Trump, you got a message to Vladimir Putin.
Thank you very much.
So compare this to the video I played yesterday of Keir Starmer showing up and the one of when Macron showed up. The body language couldn't be more different. The first thing he says is, "Oh, you dressed up today. You wore your nice sweater. Your little costume." We'll come back to that later. But this now is the important. So the setup for this was they were meeting here to sign the notorious, fabled rare earth minerals bill. That was the purpose of this meeting. They were going to sign this, or not bill, but agreement, historic agreement. Now the United States is going to have possession of these rare earth minerals, and is going to have an incentive to come in and establish the infrastructure and maintain a presence to extract these minerals, and so they have a security interest in the region. That's the ostensible purpose of this meeting. And they were having a perfectly nice conversation. It was fairly uneventful. Looked like it was headed toward just a signature. They were kind of getting close to wrapping up, and then something happened.
This thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred, and I understand that. But I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment. I have to.
So already here, Trump is like, this is language that is Zelenskyy and all of his knob slobbers are spazzing out about this. Because Trump's pretty pragmatic. He's like, look, I'm trying to negotiate a deal here, and this dude won't shut up about how much he hates the other guy. Like, do you have any political sense at all? How am I supposed to broker this peace so your country doesn't get steamrolled while you just won't stop yapping? Like, dude, shut up. He's like, yeah, Putin's not a big fan of you either, but you don't see him doing this whole song and dance.
I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way. So that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
So I could be the toughest person you've ever seen, but you're never going to get a deal that way. We need to get a deal here. So let's everyone chill the fuck out, and let's negotiate this like adults. This is the one statesman in the room. Well, not in this particular room. He's the one statesman in most rooms that he's in, but not this one. There's another. There's at least one other one there. We'll get to that here in a bit.
Hey, I want to respond to this.
All right, here.
For 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and...
Now, note who he's talking to here. So the previous context was how much Zelenskyy hates Putin and won't stop talking about him, and Trump's like, I could be really tough, but we need to negotiate a deal here. That's the context. And now Vance speaks up. And immediately Trump is like, yes, come on, speak. A lot of people have noted that it's pretty interesting how much how much leash he gives JD to talk in these sorts of venues. It's very unusual president-vice president relationship. So now Vance sits up and rotates his body, pivots towards the media, and he's talking to the media.
Talk tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
So he says this to the media, but this was not a message to the media. This was a message directed to the media, but this was a message to Zelenskyy. And Zelenskyy heard the message. He heard it loud and clear. Because the veiled meaning here, I just realized you got Trump's reflection in this plate right here. The veiled meaning here is all of this tough talk and acting like we're big shits and stuff, and like Russia is just, a gas station with a nuclear arsenal. Yeah, that's done. We cannot behave that way anymore. So this was a message directed to Zelenskyy that he delivered to the media.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014.
2014 and 2014.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
That's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, yeah, the situation the same. The people are been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed with him with gas contract. Gas contract.
This is astonishing. This is like the worst diplomatic performance by a person in any time I can remember. When you're sitting here having a little press conference, getting pictures taken of you, getting ready to sign a deal, that's not when you start arguing with the person who's going to sign the deal with you in front of the media. This is unfathomable. The dude's got to be under a tremendous amount of pressure, and he's completely out of his depth. So he's like, not only do we have to come out of here with a signed deal, we need to come out of here. See, he wants them to escalate. He wants them to make more assurances, more guarantees. So he's still in the negotiating process with them. And so he wants to come here and he wants to do a big show in front of them. And then get all the headlines, all the glowing headlines about look how great he is and yada, yada, yada. So he's here. He has to do something. He has to make a performance of some type. And historically, every single American politician has just laid down in front of him and licked his toenails. So he thinks he can come in here and sit in this big boy chair where his feet don't even touch the ground and start dictating terms. And not terms about how we're going to operate, terms about how you have to talk about the guy I don't like. He's like, I'm going to police your speech and demand that you make these verbal utterances at the guy I don't like. And every American politician in my lifetime would have either glumly just kind of said something mealy-mouthed, or just been like, oh yes, it's so awful that he did that, and we stand against dictatorship, and we just love our democracy so much. And he thinks he's killing it right here. But oh, buddy, oh no.
Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people, and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the...
This is not a conversation. If you're going to try to have this conversation, it would have gone similarly behind the scenes, but it might have gone somewhere. This just blew the hell up, and I'm fully convinced that they baited him into this. Or they had a mutual understanding ahead of time that if he starts getting feisty in the middle of this, we are going to lay an absolute smackdown on him.
Kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring it into this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to...
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I...
So you watch his body language. He sits back, he's crossing his arms, and now he's asking loaded questions, implying that he's ignorant. Oh, you don't know what you're... Have you even been there? This is catastrophic. All of his British sponsors and sponsors of other his own ethnicity, all of them they would have understood not to do this. The one thing they can do is diplomacy. To be a fly on the wall and watch as this went down, and they just laid face down on the ground and just cried.
Know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems?
You bring them on a propaganda tour. The gloves are off now. Little boy, you spoke up and you are going to get bitch slapped.
Bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
You know who's loving every single second of this? Right in the middle here. Look at him. He's basically glowing. You can see the energy just coming out of him. He's ready to go. He knows this is good TV. He spent a long time in reality TV. He knows to keep the cameras rolling, folks. This is the good stuff. This is what's going to get the ratings.
America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country.
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
Oh, you threw a lot of questions at me. Okay, let's start from the beginning. So he's condescending. He's going to be condescending to fucking JD Vance in the Oval Office in front of the media. And JD, being ever the diplomat, is like, sure, go ahead. Please, take some more rope. We are going to hang you even harder.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean. And don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
You can see that little look right there.
Yeah. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to...
Uh-oh. You see that his eyebrows go up and he turns his head real quick? Don't tell us what we're going to feel, bitch.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. But right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards.
Now Trump's pissed. Now he's actually like, the fucking audacity on this dude. Shut up. Stop talking. Close your mouth. This is where the like in the mob movies. This is where the guy would be like pleading his case and the boss would just get up and grab a baseball bat and start breaking his legs.
Of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, you said thank you. You went to Pennsylvania.
All right, so Trump got in his broke his back a couple of times. Now Trump's going to tap out, and JD's going to come in and get some licks in.
And campaign for the opposition in October, offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war,
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking.
And so now he's going to try to play this like, oh, you're being big and tough and mean and trying to shout me down, and here I am, just the poor little leader of this beset upon country. And Trump's like, okay, tap it back in now. You're not going to talk about my vice president like that. Cut the shit.
If you will speak very loudly about the war,
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
That's one of the best parts. You've done a lot of talking, and you can just see the life drain out of him.
Wait a minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in
Thump.
big trouble. You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your president.
This stupid president gave you $350 billion. You shouldn't even have gotten our money in the first place. We shouldn't even be here. We shouldn't even be here, but I still have the decency to come down here and treat you with respect. And all you can do is come in here and try to pick a fight, get mouthy with my vice president, and try to plead your case and negotiate in public. Are you out of your mind, you incompetent little retard?
Military equipment, and you men are brave, but they had to use our military. If you didn't have our military equipment, if you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this.
Again,
I tell you.
just say thank you.
That's when the deal ended. That's when the deal was off. It's going to be very hard to do business this way.
Except that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's very important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the cards.
At the end of the day, this is perfect. This is perfect. JD is like, he's like the enforcer, like, you need to act right. And then the boss can say, no, it's actually good. It's actually good that he doesn't act right. And everyone gets to see it out in public here.
Buried there, your people are dying. You're running low on soldiers. Listen, you're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go, and I wanted this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't with me.
For you what
that wasn't with me. That was with a guy named Biden who was not a smart person. That was with Obama.
It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama who
gave
you
sheets,
and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins.
He's like, in the middle of all of this, he's like, hold on. Where's the quote? Here you go. Here's your one-liner. Make the headlines, folks. Okay, back to what I was doing.
You got to be more thankful. Because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to Mr. Vice President. I'm sorry.
It's going to be a tough deal to make. Because the attitudes have to change.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire?
The attitudes have to change. The thing that's holding it back is the attitudes have to change. Oh, man. Remember how I was telling you that there's no, it's hard to watch TV because TV's just not anywhere near as entertaining as real life? This is incredible. Okay, I got a super chat in here. Let me hit that real quick. And then I've got where it was picking up there. The chick was starting to ask him a question, and I've got that, and it's another great clip. $10 from Dr. Lighthouse. He says, nobody survives slighting America's interest. This guy is going to join Keynes in the grave. Yes. I think the odds of, especially with some of the other stuff I'm going to show you here in a minute, I think the odds of a Gaddafiing have increased exponentially. Thank you for the super chat, man. We got some Keynes stuff. We'll have to talk about that on Monday. But there's some Keynes is being discussed right now, and it's very interesting. Okay, so picking up where that left off, this whole interaction is funny. This woman with an accent is asking him a question. He can't understand it. JD has to interpret it for him, and then his answer.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do we do then? I understand that it's a
What are you saying?
She's asking, what if Russia breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now? Okay? What if they broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me.
This was this whole sequence is right up there. All-time Hall of Fame Trump performances. It was with Biden. He just spits the man's name out. Biden. Obama. They didn't respect them. They respect me. Deal with it. This is what my dad always used to say to me. What if a bomb drops on your head? What if you walk outside and an airplane falls on you? He's so fed up. He's so fed up with these people and their silliness. Josh Ham says what Trump is actually saying, the attitudes need to change equals the people at the negotiating table need to change. Yes. Oh, man. So in the middle of this, some people picked up on this. I mean, it seems potentially viable. Do with it what you will. But it looks like Zelenskyy was cursing in Ukrainian under his breath when J.D. Vance was talking to him. He used the word for Russian, the Russian word for bitch. But as this guy down here says, the word is very context dependent. It's more like fuck's sake in this context. He's not directly calling Vance a bitch. But he also says when you watch hundreds of hours of Ukrainian war footage, everything, they say it over and over again. Like you step on a mine or lose your leg, everything is suka. It's something like that. It literally means bitch, but apparently it's used that way, according to this person. Here's the clip.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour. I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr.
But even if it was fuck's sake, like imagine this was just another politician or whatever sitting there. And Vance is talking, they're starting to get feisty with each other, and he's just like, fuck's sake. Like, I mean, that's just as bad. Completely out of his depth. So, this was the reaction of the Ukrainian ambassador while this was happening.
I want a ceasefire because you get a ceasefire faster than an agreement. Ask our people about ceasefire.
Oh no. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Things aren't going well. Now, if you'd noticed on some of the wider shots, you might have caught the eye of, hold on, make sure these are in the right order here. There we go. You might have caught another man in your view. We're men catchers here. John Conrad says, if you think Trump was the angry one, you've clearly never met a Cuban American and experienced this stare. Marco Grande is very unhappy. And not surprising either, because he was he's the one who negotiated this deal in the first place. So this whole thing happening the way it is making him look bad. He's got to be pissed at Zelenskyy. I went and I negotiated this thing with you. This should have been a big political win for me. And now you're turning it into not a win. He's very unhappy. And then this one here, Cringe Walker. Look at this. Cringe Walker says, I love how this image perfectly encapsulates the difference between Hearth and Cadillo mindset. The proud Angloid smiles at the rat bemused at his struggle. The grumpy Latin wishes to destroy the vermin on the spot. Hearth and Cadillo is good cop and bad cop. And so we have a submission from BFT Nationalist at Retarded Guy on X. I said, Marco Grande, you heard it here on the Astrolabe first, folks. Because Malmesbury Man says it's Big Marco now. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz went out of the Oval Office, walked to where Zelenskyy was sitting, and told him to leave. So after that whole hullabaloo, they went and kicked him out of the White House. Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz told Zelenskyy to get out of the White House, to leave. The visit was over without a minerals deal and without any assurances of ongoing U.S. support. Macro Rubio. Guys, it was sitting there in front of us the whole time. But now I'm like, I don't know, have we used Marco Grande too much? Do we need to just stick with it? Because Macro Rubio is... I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that we didn't think of it. He says he has a really good brain. I'll let you guys decide that. So not only did they kick him out, but there was supposed to be a great luncheon afterwards. And they kicked him out before the luncheon and had the luncheon without him.
Yeah, I just went up to the press area to get an understanding of what we're watching. This is what I was told. The president has kicked Zelenskyy out of the White House. His delegation right now is telling him that he's got to go home. The president felt disrespected. Officials in the room felt that beyond the language barrier that we've heard some discussion about, Zelenskyy's body language, shrugging and eye-rolling, was ungrateful, disrespectful, and the president feels that Zelenskyy is not ready for peace, and he can come back when he's ready to talk about peace, but he's not in that position right now, and Zelenskyy is being told he's got to go. The lunch that they were supposed to have is sitting right outside the hallway, and the press staffers are going to be eating that lunch. This is really pretty incredible. We see the SUV that Zelenskyy's SUV. Yeah, I just went up to...
Oh, and then they have to stop and look at him as he walks out, and you see him for a brief second before he gets in. Ian Carroll says, no cool kids table for you. They quite literally kicked him out of the cool kids table. And then they were dunking on him on social media. Dan Scavino posted this luncheon in honor of His Excellency Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine. What did they have? An early spring green salad with sunset tomatoes and White House honey dressing. That was pretty good. Rosemary roasted chicken with a celery root puree. Ugh. Asparagus, okay. Collard greens, okay. Dijon, not bad. And then a creme brulee with assorted berries. Dan Scavino posted, the luncheon with President Trump and his great team went on this afternoon. With some open seats at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, President Trump invited some additional team members from the West Wing. Thank you, POTUS and VP, America first. Some open seats at 1:30. God, they are absolutely ruthless, man. It is remarkable. And after all of that, I guess before they got kicked out, this is one I had in the wrong order. I knew there was going to be one of them. This from Josh Rayner posted this. This reporter took a couple of swings at him. Now he's just fair game. Now everyone's going for him.
Second question.
My second question for President Zelenskyy. Why don't you wear a suit? Why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest level in this country's office, and you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see if do you own a suit?
Yeah, problems.
A lot of Americans have problems with you not respecting.
I don't have such.
Office.
I will wear a costume after this war will finish.
Okay.
Yes, maybe one.
Maybe
something like yours. Yes. Maybe something better. I don't know. We will see. Maybe something cheaper than. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for.
What a little shithead, man. The absolute audacity. I just cannot imagine that he is long for the world, man. It is brutal. There was something else I want to see if I I thought there was another clip related to this, but maybe I didn't save it. No, I didn't. Okay. So we do have picture proof that he does own a suit. That he, in fact, will show up for important events in a suit. Huh. What do you know? Look at that. The tie sucks. The tie knot is terrible. But what do you know? He can even shave. He even has a razor. Look at that. Remarkable. Just has to be the right company, I suppose. So the story continued after they left. Trump posted this. We had a very meaningful meeting in the White House today. Much was learned that could never be understood without conversation under such fire and pressure. What does that mean? We put him under some pressure and he said all the things we wanted him to say to demonstrate how he needs to go. It's amazing what comes out through emotion, and I have determined that President Zelenskyy is not ready for peace if America is involved, because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage, I want peace. He disrespected the United States of America and its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he's ready for peace. He literally sent him to his room. You can come out when you're ready to have good behavior. Go to your room, little boy. And then the White House posted this. America first. Edius said, Trump just annihilated another world leader and threw up the set again. The last time they did that was when he took out Soleimani. Now, if you want an idea of just how much he fucked up, just how bad it is for the little rat now, South Carolina's favorite queer showed up and denounced him.
All right. So, what do I think? Complete, utter disaster. I've been to Ukraine 8 or 9 times since the war started. I understand the consequences of Putin's actions against Ukraine. I appreciate what the Ukrainian people have done. They fought like tigers. At the end of the day, I was hoping that this minerals deal, which would be transformative in the relationship, would go over well. I talked to Zelenskyy this morning. Don't take the bait. President Trump was in a very good mood last night. Somebody asked me, am I embarrassed about Trump? I have never been more proud of the president. I was very proud of J.D. Vance, standing up for our country.
Notice how, what a pause. Notice how he's not looking at anyone. He doesn't make eye contact with a single person, and he's swaying back and forth, and just he's on something, and he is spazzing out.
Want to be helpful. What I saw in the Oval Office was disrespectful, and I don't know if we can ever do business with Zelenskyy again. I don't think we can ever do business with Zelenskyy again. You know what this means? I don't know if Zelenskyy is going to make it back to Europe. Their only pivot at this point is to throw Zelenskyy over the edge and try to get their guy in to replace him. I don't know who that guy is or what exactly that's going to look like, but I can imagine that's going to have to be their fallback. These people do not let up ever. Every time you get an angle on them, they're so shameless they will just fall back to another angle. But in order to make that happen, Zelenskyy got to go bye-bye. Most Americans saw a guy that they would not want to go in business with. The way he handled the meeting, the way he confronted the president was just over the top. So I think the relationship between Ukraine and America is important, vitally important. But can Zelensky do a deal with the United States? After what I saw, I don't know.
What would he need to do, sir? Three questions. Senator Graham.
You met once with President Trump. What did he say to you about his interactions and whether he thinks
he was shocked? He was very upbeat. I told Zelensky, we'll talk about security guarantees. We'll talk about ceasefires and how the war ends. This is a process. You have a new relationship with America, a $500 billion, $500 billion deal that President Trump is proud of, that gives us an interest worth defending. Let's talk about the positive. But he was terrible at Munich, Zelensky, and I think he has made it almost impossible to sell to the American people that he's a good investment.
He's made it impossible to sell to the American people that he's a good investment. Just saying it out loud. Just literally laying it out exactly like that. We have been trying to sell to the American people that he's a good investment, and he just went and made it impossible. We will never be able to sell to the American people that he's a good investment. He has to go. When his biggest cheerleader has turned on him, you know that he's cooked. Has Hermetica Gemini, a $2 super chat. Is Zelenskyy, why is there a picture of my house? Right. I don't think that he's going to be retiring in Palm Beach.
He is a good business partner.
Last question. Senator Graham. Hey, one at a time. One at a time. Christian Daytime.
Senator Graham, thank you. Do you think President Zelensky needs to resign to resume these peace talks?
He either needs to resign and send somebody over that we can do business with, or he needs to change.
Thank you. Thank you.
What a creepy dude. Ugh. Don't want that on my screen anymore. And then Trump did a press conference. And there's some very interesting statements that he makes in here that really reveal his mindset around this whole thing. Once you understand how to speak Trump, you can kind of read between the lines in the way that he communicates. This interview, I think, is very revealing.
And, very good.
That's loud.
Very good. I think our country is really good.
Oop. Sorry, I won't make you guys listen to it at 2x. If I didn't, I'd never get through all the stuff I have to.
And very good feeling. I think our country is really turned around. We had a meeting today, as you know, with President Zelenskyy, and I would say it didn't work out exactly great from his standpoint. I think he very much overplayed his hand. We're looking for peace. We're not looking for somebody that's going to sign up a strong power and then not make peace because they feel emboldened, and that's what I saw happening.
We're not going to sign a deal with someone who thinks that they can sign up a strong power and then get emboldened. He knows exactly what they're trying to do. He knows exactly that they're trying to bait him into participating in the escalation of this war. And he understands. This isn't his first negotiation. I saw someone tweeted that he's been yelling at Brooklyn Jews for his entire career. That all of that just prepared him for this moment. He knows exactly what they're trying to do to him. And he says, you're trying to get me on your side to make you feel better about attacking and escalating the war. Because you want to. You're looking for an excuse. But you know that if you do it right now, you're going to get crushed. You have no leverage. You think you have leverage over me, and you don't. Because I can sit here in my Oval Office and drag my nuts across your forehead and spank you on the ass and send you out the door, and you can't do a damn thing about it. I will make you say thank you for it.
I'm looking for peace. We're not looking to go into a 10-year war and play games. We want peace. And it was just my impression that if we do that, if we sign up, he's looking for something that I'm not looking for. He's looking to go on and fight. We're looking to end the death.
No, funny that he says fight in this context.
2,000 people died this week, soldiers, more than that. But 2,000 approximately people died this week. Young Ukrainians and Russians. And somebody would say, why do you care about Ukraine and Russian soldiers? I care about them. I care about everybody.
I care about them. Ukrainian soldiers and Russian soldiers. You guys heard me say this a couple of weeks ago. You guys heard me say that I don't think that we're going to be super happy with the way they wind up handling the Ukraine situation. Because I was expecting a lot more, I was expecting them to be a lot more just kind of pragmatic about it and just, and wind up kind of getting some sort of protracted thing, but withdrawing mostly, and it would keep bubbling around on this in the background. They have blown away my expectations.
And we're not doing that. Now, if we don't do anything, he's going to have to make peace, but he's dealing with a very weak set of cards. If we sign, he's dealing with a very strong set of cards, and then he doesn't want to make peace. So that's where we are. It's very simple. I'm not looking to get into anything protracted. I want immediate peace. President Putin is going to want to make, and he wants to end it. And you saw what I saw today. This is a man that wants to get us signed up and keep fighting, and we're not doing that, not for this country. So we're setting a lot of records. Economically, we're setting records, and I think every way we're setting records. One of the best is the right track, wrong track. You saw that. We're on the right track for the first time in over 27 years. People.
I think there was one more clip that I had here. Yeah, kind of reiterating this, but he makes the point even clearer here.
What does Zelenskyy need to do to restart talks with you?
He's got to say, I want to make peace. He doesn't have to stand there and say about Putin this, Putin that, all negative things. He's got to say, I want to make peace. I don't want to fight a war any longer. His people are dying. He doesn't have the cards, just so you understand it, okay? I can
He doesn't have the cards. The most pro-peace president of my lifetime, by far. There is no question who is... There's no question that Daddy's home. And Daddy's in charge. He's running the show. Everyone else is going to bend to him. He holds all the cards. $10 super chat from CyberChud2077. He needs to come back in a suit and he needs to be wearing a MAGA hat or he's not coming back inside. That's exactly what they need to do. They need to make him wear a MAGA hat. You need to say, I want peace. I need to put a MAGA hat on. Then we could talk a deal here. But he says he has to say, I want peace, not Putin this and Putin that. He's got to get over his whole Putin thing. Because Putin is a legitimate leader with a legitimate position, and we're going to deal with him as such. We're going to relate to him as equals, because we are. You little pissant, are not an equal. You don't get to dictate terms to us. We don't trust you. We know exactly that we know you're trying to use us. We know you don't run this show. We know that you've been sent over here by your owners. You're an actor. And you're not even a good one. So you are going to bend the knee. Or someone else is going to bend it for you. Mom's Burryman here says, this week's trio of White House visits from France, the UK, and Ukraine was highly revealing about European and American culture and the evolving nature of America's vision of the global system. Francis Macron and Trump had a love fest, effusively complimenting each other, clasping hands and bro-hugging, even enjoying a little thigh-grabbing competition. The UK's Starmer was a bit stiff and awkward, but he played it well, honoring Trump with a personalized invitation to visit from his king. Ukraine's Zelenskyy came in with arrogance and disrespect and was publicly ejected from the White House, and perhaps the most humiliating diplomatic debacle a nation has ever endured in its relations with the White House, with the United States. There's a significant cultural element to these strikingly different outcomes. There's a depth of mutual understanding between US and France/the UK, thanks to their long histories of good relations and shared heritage, which Ukraine lacks. Western European leaders were better able to understand Trump's interests intuitively, and they were willing to play to his interests for the sake of maintaining good relations with their nations. But the connection between... So they could, even if they were LARPing, they knew how to LARP. They knew how to show up, look sharp, dress well, connect with him, play it up, do your whole thing. And Trump knows what's going on, and he's happy to play the game along with him. Oh, yeah, you're the... You know, we've got the more Latin influenced culture here, so let's get all silly and friendly and laugh and giggle and stuff. And then we've got the stuffy Anglo, so we'll be all prim and proper and I'll poke fun at you and then you've got the little rat, and he just got broken in half. But the connection between the US and the Ukraine is new, and despite overwrought rhetoric about democratic principles, is actually built on a highly transactional understanding of geopolitics and mutual interest. Trump was prepared to continue the relationship, albeit with modifications, but only on the basis of an explicit understanding of the relative status of the parties. Ukraine as the subordinate party, receiving measures of protection from the US and showing gratitude for it in the form of preferential rights to exploit Ukraine's resources. Ukraine balked at this arrangement, hoping to maintain their sovereign independence, control over their resources, and cultural distinctness. All of this was evidenced by Zelensky's public waffling over the mineral deal, his demeanor in the Oval Office meeting, refusal to display gratitude, a basic American and Western European norm, even his refusal to follow protocol of attire. Ukraine expected to approach the relationship on equal terms. The U.S. flatly rejected that understanding of the relationship. Whether Ukraine continues to be a part of the American system will ultimately depend on their willingness to accept the reality of their status within the system. Oh, goodness sakes! All right, you gotta have an intermission. Oh, we got the incoming message. Come here.
Good night, Gaga.
You saying goodnight to your Gaga? Good night, Gaga.
Good night, Gaga.
Look, they're putting the oinks in there for you. You see them? Look at all the oinks.
I'm a Black Panther. Can you ask them to put Black Panthers in the chat?
You guys got to put Black Panthers in the chat. I don't know if they have Black Panthers, but I think they might have a tiger or a lion. Do you want to see one of those?
Yes.
Which one?
Black Panther.
There isn't a Black Panther one that they can do. Do you want to see a tiger or a lion?
Tiger and a lion.
You want to see a tiger and a lion? All right. There you go. You need a tiger and a lion. Or is that a black cat? Maybe there's a black cat one. And there's some tigers. More tigers.
And some Black Panthers.
And there's some Black Panthers. There is a Black Panther one, I think. It's hard to tell from this distance, but... And then there's lions and tigers. Oh, Mommy says you were supposed to tell me something. What were you going to tell me?
What was it?
Something about what are you going to do tonight?
I'm not gonna sleep with a diaper.
You're not going to sleep with a diaper? You going to be a big kid? Don't pull on it.
Tell them that.
They heard it. They heard it when I said it out loud. All right, you're going to be a big kid? You're going to go all night?
Uh-huh.
All right. Fist bump.
Can you ask them to show all of the animals that are on the screen?
No, we can't do that right now, but they do have some dragons. There's a turtle. There's a little turtle right there.
And where's there more?
There's a bear. Someone did a bear up there. And there's some more Black Panthers and some more tigers. When you go down, you can ask Mommy to show you the pictures because Mommy can show them to you on her phone. Okay?
Okay.
All right, I love you, big guy.
I love you.
Have a good sleep.
Can I see more of the animals?
Go ask Mommy to show them to you. See, there's some fish and a frog. Go get Mommy to show you some more of them.
Okay.
I love you, big guy.
I love you too.
Okay. Thank you guys for entertaining him. Very much appreciated. Oh, there's all the All the animals now. Cyberchud. Shout out to Cyberchud. Amy, you can show them those. All right, let's get back to this. Whether Ukraine continues to be a part of the American system will ultimately depend on their willingness to accept the reality of their status within the system. America, in its evolving self-understanding, does not view its support for Ukraine's war with Russia as an attempt to prop up a sovereign and independent nation whose borders were threatened. America no longer views itself as the guarantor of the global system of nations, as it did in recent decades. It now views itself rather as a powerful participant in a global network of relations, one who will cut deals for its own benefit where there are willing counterparties, but who does not see any particular benefit to promoting certain ideals or even certain border configurations, as long as its interests are protected. In short, America's role in the 21st century is evolving into something like the role the UK played in Europe in the 19th century, projecting power from its islands sufficient to prevent itself from being overpowered and hoping to profit from trade. It's very interesting. The comparison, having all three of these all happen in the same week, with all of them effectively coming for the same reason. And watching how they panned out is so interesting. And this dynamic that he's describing here, where Ukraine needs to, what was it here? Ukraine expected to approach the relationship on equal terms. The U.S. flatly rejected that understanding of the relationship. And the Ukraine is the subordinate party, receiving measures of protection from the U.S. and showing gratitude for it in the form of preferential rights to exploit Ukraine's resources. This relationship that the United States is now establishing with the Ukraine, a variant of this relationship is going to be established with the other European nations as well. And they're going to be given an opportunity to engage in good faith and have some say in dictating what those are going to be like, in the same way that Zelenskyy was given an opportunity here. But if they don't play ball right, they're not going to be granted some sort of like exception. No, you abide by the terms of the deal, which is you scratch our back, we'll scratch your back on terms that we agree to, or we're not allies. There's no like innate presumption that, we just automatically sign up to defend and protect all of your interests and subsidize your economies. And no, we're not going to do that anymore. FE Informant says Russia and France are our oldest allies. Yeah, and honestly, the United States and Russia have really no reason to be in opposition with one another. They're natural allies. And I suspect over the next couple of decades, they're going to become very, very strong allies. The European nations are really going to have to decide whether they want to be subservient to the United States or subservient to Russia. That's their decision. The Trump administration, and I would assume even more so the Vance administration, is going to be willing to let them determine that for themselves. You guys get to decide which one you want to be subservient to, but there's no world in which you are treated as peer nations. It's just simply preposterous to even consider that. In no world whatsoever, militarily, financially, economically, there's no way that you are peer nations. You'll be treated as a valued partner as long as you recognize that you are the junior partner. All right, so fourth ad during the live stream. Good grief. Is that more than usual, Josh? Let me see if I can change that. Will it let me edit the ad thing in the middle of it? Let's see here. Delay ads. Oh, cool. I can delay ads for 10 seconds. Oh, no, 10 minutes. Oh, cool. I didn't realize I can do that. All right, maybe I'll just keep track of that and keep delaying them. Okay, so here is 48 showing up at the Catholic prayer breakfast. I believe this was in the morning before all of this went down. And it's just fantastic. It's 30 minutes long, and it's completely worth it, just from the clips that I've seen thus far. And it's surreal to watch this and to think this is the sitting vice president in the United States, who is very clearly becoming the favorite to be the president for 8 years beyond the next 4. I've never related to a politician more than I do J.D. Vance in this speech. So let's go.
Thank you all. Thank you. Please take a seat. And I will say that even though I, in my private sector days, was a technology investor in Silicon Valley, I haven't quite figured out how to work my government computer yet. So 30 days in, I'm going to have to wing this a little bit because I thought about what I was going to say on the morning over here. And that, of course, makes all the communications staff that are sitting backstage extremely nervous because they have no idea what I'm going to say. And before I went on, I talked to Luke, who's one of my main communications guys, and I said, Luke, this is all off the record, right? No one's going to say or know what I said today, so I can just say whatever I want, and I'm sure that none of you will leak it to Axios, and none of our friends in the media back there will stream it live. So let me, just offer a few notes of appreciation. First off, to Maureen Ferguson, who's become a dear friend of mine, and I know a great leader in this community. She and her husband Mike have been better and kinder to me than I deserve, and my entire family has been the beneficiary of it, especially in finding places to send my kids to school at the very last minute, because I'm a bit of a procrastinator, and Maureen and Mike have been very helpful in helping us navigate the DC school environment for our young children, and so we're grateful to them. I want to give a shout out and a note of appreciation to Congressman Chris Smith from the great state of New Jersey, who I know received the great award. And we're grateful to his leadership and grateful for his friendship, and he is a very good guy. So Chris, I assume you're out there somewhere, though I can't see you. But congratulations, man. We're proud of you, and I'm proud to be here with you. I want to thank Mark Randall, who, of course, has hosted an incredible breakfast for now. This is the 20th year, I believe, of the National Catholic Prayer Breakfast, and it seems like we're doing pretty good here with the National Catholic Prayer Breakfast. And of course, this breakfast holds a very special place in my heart. As Maureen mentioned, I came here last year as a very young senator, not knowing how much my life would change. And I'm thankful to God, but also thankful to the friendship of the people in this room for helping us get there, because I think that we have turned a new page in Washington, D.C., and we are going to take advantage of the opportunity that God has given us. I want to say a couple of words just about Trump administration policy, because while you're certainly not always going to agree with everything that we do in President Trump's administration,
note as you're listening to this, like you said at the beginning, this is off the cuff. This is just him speaking extemporaneously with maybe some notes or a couple slightly prepared comments. But this is him just speaking. And compare this to him speaking on the teleprompter. And note the difference.
I feel very confident in saying that between protecting the rights of pro-life protesters, between ensuring that we have an opportunity to protect the rights of the unborn in the first place, and importantly, protecting the religious liberty of all people, but in particular Catholics, I think that we can say that President Trump, though not a Catholic himself, has been an incredibly good president for Catholics in the United States of America. Now, we know, of course, the last administration liked to throw people in jail for silently praying outside of pro-life clinics. We know that they like to harass pro-life fathers of seven, very often Catholic fathers, for participating in the pro-life movement. And we know that the last administration wanted to protect taxpayer-funded abortion right up into the moment of birth. On every single one of those issues, in 30 short days, Donald J. Trump has gone in the exact opposite direction, and I am thankful for that, and I'm sure that every single person in this room is thankful for that as well. But I actually want to talk about a couple of other things. In particular, one of the most important parts of President Trump's policy, and where I think President Trump's policy is most in accord with Christian social teaching and with the Catholic faith is that more than any president of my lifetime, President Trump has pursued a path of peace. And we very often, I think, ignore the way in which our foreign policy is either an instrument or an impediment to people all over the world being able to practice their faith. And we know, as of course I learned in this breakfast last year, I believe there were some Nigerian priests who were being persecuted and were trying to protect their flock despite incredible persecution. We know that some of the biggest groups that are persecuted all over the world today are Christians. And the Trump administration promises you that whether it's here at home with our own citizens or all over the world, we will be the biggest defenders of religious liberty and the rights of conscience. And I think those policies will fall to the benefit of Catholics in particular all over the world.
Josh Ham says, by the way, I really notice how Vance always respects Trump. Vance never says our administration. No, Vance respects his position as the red shirt in training. I'm betting Trump respects that a lot. Yes, he's very properly deferential to Trump without being obsequious or ingratiating. He's properly deferential to him as the HNIC.
But I would say, my friends, that it's not enough simply to protect the rights of conscience, to pursue funding opportunities and grant-making opportunities that protect the rights of people to engage in religious conscience. We also have to remember that oftentimes the biggest impediments to religious liberty have not come through malice from the United States government, but have actually come through carelessness. And one of the things that I have to be honest, that I am most ashamed about, is that in the United States of America, sometimes it is our foreign misadventures that lead to the eradication of historical Christian communities all over the world. And so when President Trump...
Foreign policy targeting and eradicating Christianity around the world. I wonder what that might be. What's that all about?
Talks about the need to bring peace, whether it's in Russia and Ukraine, whether it's in the Middle East. We, of course, have to recognize that as a policy oriented towards saving lives and carrying out one of Christ's most important commandments. But I think we also must recognize it as an effort to protect the religious liberty of Christians. Because over the past 40 years, it has often been historical Christian communities who bear the brunt of failed American foreign policy. And that is, in my view, perhaps the most important way in which Donald Trump has been a defender of Christian rights all over the world is he has a foreign policy that is oriented towards peace. We have done it already so much in the past 30 days, and I'm proud that we will work for peace all over the world in the remaining 4 years of President Trump's term, and I think that's an important thing. Now, of course, we're not always going to agree, and I'm sure that there are people in this room who agree, who agree or disagree with some of our views on foreign policy, on any number of issues. The one thing that I will promise you is that you're always going to have an open door with me and with the president. I think that you've already seen that, and if you haven't, please come and bring your concerns, and some of you have already brought many concerns to me over the last 30 days. But also your attaboys, because I think that part of being a good presidential administration for people of faith all over the United States, part of it is listening to people of faith when they have concerns. And I think that it's important, and I'll make this commitment to you in front of God and in front of all those television cameras back there, that we will always listen to people of faith and people of conscience in the United States of America. You have an open door to the Trump administration, even and especially maybe when you disagree with us. So please use that opportunity, communicate with us when we get things right, but also when we get things wrong. And that is my solemn obligation, but also my request. Because, of course, as I've learned, during the campaign, of course, I got Secret Service protection, and now it's bumped up now that I'm the Vice President of the United States. I live in a bubble, ladies and gentlemen. I live in a roaming bubble, and wherever I go, I'm surrounded by armed agents. The only way to keep me honest and the only way to know what is actually affecting the real lives of people all over our country is for you to talk to us. And so please consider that open door very much an invitation, but also a request.
Just, I was texting my dad about Vance earlier, and I said, if he keeps this up, when he is elected president in 4 years, he is going to have an entire army of young Christian men who are ready to die for him. This is the most relatable, down-to-earth, sincere, honest Christian politician that I have ever seen in my life. Maybe Ron Paul. That's the only other one I could think of. Maybe Thomas Massey. But he has... J.D. Vance has a vulnerability and an honesty to him that is just so incredibly relatable. And he's my age. He's my generation. Is this what it feels like to be represented? I feel very represented right now. Josh Ham says also JD will have personal connections to Catholics, Orthodox, and obviously Protestants. Knowing his area, I'm betting he was around a lot of Southern Baptists. Those are his Appalachian people. And he's also very close friends with Rod Dreher, who is Orthodox. So he's got a direct personal connection to the Orthodox Church. And obviously, he's Catholic.
And I will say that, I believe, Maureen, and maybe this is wrong, that I'm the first Catholic convert to ever be Vice President of the United States. And I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys clapping because it turns out there's some people on the internet who don't like Catholic converts. And in fact, there are some Catholics who appear not to like Catholic converts. I've learned that the hard way, but of course the gross majority of my brothers and sisters in Christ have been incredibly welcoming and incredibly charitable, and for that I'm grateful. And I wanted to just reflect on that, on being a Catholic, and particularly a Catholic convert in public life, in the hopes that maybe it would provide some wisdom or some guidance or maybe just some interesting stories for those of you who are enjoying your breakfast. And one of the things that I try to remind myself of as a convert is that there's a lot I don't know. When I was a kid, we used to call new converts to the faith baby Christians, and I recognize very much that I am a baby Catholic, that there are things about the faith that I don't know, and so I try to be humble as best I can when I talk about the faith in publicly, because of course I'm not always going to get it right, and I don't want my inadequacies in describing our faith to fall back on the faith itself. And so if you ever hear me pontificating about the Catholic faith, please recognize it comes from a place of deep belief, but it also comes from a place of not always knowing everything all the time. And, I say that, of course, I don't try to comment on every single Catholic issue. I try not to get involved in the civil wars between Dominicans and Jesuits and conservative Catholics and progressive Catholics. But as Michael Corleone said in The Godfather, sometimes they pull me back in. Sometimes.
He's memeing!
I can't help but spout off. I am a politician after all, ladies and gentlemen. But the thing that I've tried to remind people of, and the thing that I try to remind myself of, is that what attracted me to the Christian faith and what attracted me to this church in particular is the recognition that grace is not something that happens instantaneously. It's something that God works in us over a long period of time, sometimes many years and sometimes many decades. I think that when I was a kid, my assumption is that grace is something where the Holy Spirit would come in and it would solve all of our problems. And I learned the hard way as a Catholic, in part by following the sacramental life as best as I could, that grace is very much a process, that God works in us over time. He makes us closer to Him and makes us better people in the process. And so when I first became a Catholic, I would probably go to confession every other week because I would fail to go to Mass every other week. And, things would come up. You'd have business trips. You'd have, the kids would get sick. And I just remember that this process of thinking, okay, if I don't go to church this week, I'm going to have to go and talk to some stranger about everything that I did bad the last 2 weeks. And that process worked in me a much better discipline, a much better prayerful life. And, you know, I'm batting probably like 95% of Sundays now that I actually go to Mass. And so, you know, this is I think, one of the geniuses. Thank you. I think this is one of the geniuses of our faith, is that it teaches us through repetition in some ways, and it forms us through a process, of course, that is, I think, at the heart of the mystery of faith, that somehow by practicing the sacraments, even imperfectly, as I certainly do, God transforms us. And while I am as imperfect a Christian as any person in this room, I really do feel that God is transforming me every single day. And that's one of the great blessings of our faith and one of the great blessings of following the sacraments as I try to do. And so thank you all for welcoming a convert into your ranks, because I certainly benefit from it, and my family does too. You know, the second thing that I take from my Catholic faith is
I'm just going to say, again, I'm going to wear this phrase out. I have never felt more represented. This is just, we've got a vice president who is giving speeches that are appointment listening, that are speaking directly to the souls of young Christian men. Oh.
Recognition that the deepest and most important things are not material, they're not GDP, they're not the numbers that we see in the stock market. The real measure of health in a society is the safety and stability and the health of our families and of our people. We are in the business, of course, we're in the business of President Trump's administration of producing prosperity, but that prosperity is a means to an end. And that end is the flourishing, hopefully, of the life of every single citizen in the United States of America. That's why we care about these things. And, you know, I often remind myself that, you know, there have been times in the past where, you know, the GDP numbers were maybe moving in the right direction, where the stock market was moving in the right direction, but the United States of America was losing life expectancy. I think that what the Catholic Church calls me to do is to say that if the stock market's doing okay, but people are literally dying and losing years off of their life, then we have to do better as a country. Catholicism, Christianity, at its root, I think, teaches our public officials to care about the deep things, the important things, the protection of the unborn, the flourishing of our children, and the health and the sanctity of our marriages. And yes, we care about prosperity, but we care about prosperity so that we can promote the common good of every citizen in the United States of America.
He is cooking. Oh my God, I've got goosebumps. Oh, every single one of the retards out there who have been dooming about this man. You guys got to go to an island somewhere or something. Just get out. Get out. This is the most sincere Christian man I have seen as a politician. And he's the vice president and the future president.
And when I think about the deep things, the things that really matter, there was something really amazing that happened to me in November of 2024. All my friends were there, all my family was there. We were gathered together in a great moment of celebration. And of course, I'm talking about when my 7-year-old chose to be baptized into the Christian faith. And Ewan is at school right now, so he won't see this, but as amazing as it was to win the election, of course, in November of 2024, and as amazing as it was to know that President Trump would become president again and would get to accomplish so many good things for the American people, the thing that I was most excited about in November of 2024 is that the week after we won the election, my son chose to be baptized in the Christian faith. Now, here's the basic idea, and for those of you, of course, you all mostly are cradle Catholics, I assume, and typically we do water baptism of infants in the Catholic Church very, very early on. But as many of you know, I am part of an interfaith marriage. My wife, though she comes to church with us almost every single Sunday, she is not Catholic herself. And so the bargain that we have struck is that we will raise our kids Catholic, but we will let them choose the moment that they want to ultimately become baptized. And if that's terrible sacrilege, blame the Dominicans, because they're the ones who came up with this scheme.
So isn't this very interesting? He married the woman before converting. By all appearances, she's a fantastic, devoted mother. But she hasn't converted. And this is what they've worked out. And even in doing it, he's like, I'm submitting to the wisdom of the church for how to handle this particular situation. And she is submitting to him in that. I don't want to hear a single thing about this man and his wife ever again. Anybody who's talking that way is entirely out of turn. And it's no place for any self-respecting man to weigh in on like that. Anybody who does, that's a massive red flag.
But my 7-year-old elected to become baptized, and it was the proudest moment maybe that I've ever had as a father. And he took it very seriously, and he wanted to know, what are the right things to say, Dad? What do I need to do? What does this mean? Why is this important? And it was an amazing thing for me to see my 7-year-old working through these things himself. And when I talk about the deep things, the important things, that's what I'm talking about. Of course we care about our economic indicators, and of course we care about the wages of our citizens. We care about those things because when our people are doing better, they can have the kinds of moments that promote the kind of flourishing that all of us believe is the very core of a good human life. And that, of course, in my case, was watching my little 7-year-old son become baptized. And so, while again, I will never be perfect, I will always try to remind myself that the goal of our public policy is to promote the common good, and I will fight for that every single day that I am a public official. And that brings me to the final observation I'd like to make as a Christian, a Catholic convert in public life, is that, sometimes the bishops don't like what I say. And I'm sure, by the way, sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. My goal is not to litigate when I'm right and when they're wrong or vice versa. My goal is to maybe articulate the way that I think about being a Christian in public life when you also have religious leaders in public life who have a spiritual duty to speak on the issues of the day. And the way that I try to think about it is the Catholic Church is a kind of technology. It's a technology that was developed 2,000 years ago, and it's coming into contact with a technology that's about 10 years old, 20 years old, and that's, of course, social media. And what I try to remind myself of is that the clergy are important spiritual leaders. You'll sometimes hear people say, well, we'll let the clergy talk about matters of the church, but we can ignore them when it comes to matters of public policy. I think that's the wrong way to look at it. That's certainly not the right way to look at it for me. But what I try to remind myself of is that we are not called as Christians to obsess over every social media controversy that implicates the Catholic Church. Whether it involves a clergy or a bishop or the Holy Father himself, I think that we could frankly take a page out of the books of our grandparents who respected our clergy, who looked to them for guidance, but didn't obsess and fight over every single word that came out of their mouth and entered social media. I don't think that's good. And I'm not, again, counseling all of you, but I don't think it's good for us as Christians to constantly fight with one another over every single controversy in the church. Sometimes we should let this stuff play out a little bit and try to live our faith as best we can under the dictates of our faith and under the dictates of our spiritual leaders, but not hold them to the standards of social media influencers, because they're not. And I think And that brings me, of course, to the last point that I want to make, which is that, as you've probably seen publicly, the Holy Father, Pope Francis, has criticized some of our policies when it comes to immigration. And again, my goal here is not to litigate with him or any other clergy member about who's right and who's wrong. You obviously know my views, and I will speak to them consistently because I think that I have to do it because it serves the best interests of the American people. What I want to do instead is remind, and I talk to a lot of conservative.
Imagine having an elected official who takes extremely seriously the idea that he is both an elected official and a Christian and has a duty to balance between his duty to the church and his responsibilities and his position, and that these aren't in conflict. They don't have to be in conflict. But sometimes this isn't an easy thing to navigate through, and you have to be humble about it, but you also have to know when you have to follow your intuition and know when you need to speak out about some of these things, even if it does mean contravening someone who has spiritual authority over you, at least rhetorically, and recognizing you're taking that on your own soul, and if you're wrong, you're going to bear the consequences for being wrong, but taking very seriously this responsibility. I've never heard language like this out of almost, like, not even just an elected official, but most people in public life. This is extremely unusual for anyone, much less the frickin' vice president.
Catholics, and I talk to progressive Catholics too, and I think that sometimes a lot of conservative Catholics are too preoccupied with their political criticisms of a particular clergy member or the leader of the Catholic Church. And of course, I'm not telling you that you're wrong, because sometimes I even agree with you. I think that what I would say is that it's not in the best interest of any of us, again, to treat the religious leaders of our faith as just another social media influencer. And I think, frankly, that goes in both ways. If I can be so bold, I think it's incumbent upon our religious leaders to recognize that in the era of social media, people will hang on every single word that they utter, even if that wasn't their intention, and even if a given declaration wasn't meant for consumption in the social media age. But every day since I heard of Pope Francis's illness, I say a prayer for the Holy Father, because while, yes, I was certainly surprised when he criticized our immigration policy in the way that he has, I also know that the Pope, I believe that the Pope is fundamentally a person who cares about the flock of Christians under his leadership. And he's the man.
This is the exact proper perspective for a man in his position to have. And he's also, like a few of you pointed out in the chat here, like he's saying, quit spurging out, Anons. Whether or not, like, even if you do have a disagreement like this and you are fully convinced that you're right and there are major stakes to it, it's not like he can just be like, oh, well, the Pope said our immigration policy is bad, so we need to change our immigration policy. That's silly. But at the same time, the Pope's office still merits the respect that a religious leader's office is due, even if you don't agree with them. And it's not proper or good to get into flame wars with religious leaders in public, particularly within your own church. It's just not proper. You just do not behave that way. There's nothing healthy about it. It's not going to get you anywhere. And all continue to seek peace in all things. Even if you're going to disagree, all right, we're going to disagree, but I'm still going to I still owe you the respect due to your office.
And he's a man who cares about the spiritual direction of the faith. And I say this because every day, me and my children have said a prayer for the Holy Father. And we pray for his health, and we pray for his comfort as he deals with what appears to be a pretty serious health crisis. And while, yes, some of our media and some of our social media influencers and even some of us fellow Catholics, I think, try to bring the Holy Father into every culture war battle in American politics, I will always remember the Holy Father, whether he makes its way through this illness, and I certainly hope that he does. I will always remember the Holy Father in March of 2020, at a time of incredible stress for really the entire world. Remember, that was the height of the COVID pandemic. None of us knew how bad it was. We heard reports from Italy of people dying in mass on ventilators. And personally, I had just a few weeks earlier welcomed our second child into the world. And so when the COVID pandemic happened, I had a 3-week-old baby at home, and I went to Dick's Sporting Goods, and I bought 900 rounds of ammunition. And then I went to Walmart, and I bought 2 bags of rice. And I sat at home with my bags of rice and my 900 rounds of ammunition and said, all right, we're just going to wait this thing out.
Our guy.
And into that void, when a lot of people didn't know how bad it was, and of course, thankfully, the pandemic was not as bad as the very worst predictions. It was quite bad, but not as bad as the very worst predictions. I think all of us can remember that moment of the Holy Father standing in an empty St. Peter's Square, holding the Eucharist above his head, and giving a sermon that I return to consistently because it was incredibly meaningful to me at the time, and it remains meaningful today. And so if you'll forgive me, I hope that you'll be okay with me reading just an excerpt of the homily that Pope Francis gave.
For those who are just listening to the audio, you may not be able to, he's covering it pretty well, you may not be able to pick it out, but he's getting choked up, he's getting emotional, and he's working his way through this.
When evening had come, which of course is from Mark chapter 4, verse 35, the gospel passage we have heard begins like this. For weeks now it has been evening. Thick darkness has gathered over our squares, our streets, and our cities. It has taken over our lives, filling everything with a deafening silence and a distressing void that stops everything as it passes by. We feel it in the air. We notice it in people's gestures. Their glances give them away. We find ourselves afraid and lost. Like the disciples in the gospel, we were caught off guard by an unexpected, turbulent storm. We have realized that we are on the same boat, all of us fragile and disoriented, but at the same time important and needed. All of us called to row together, each of us in need of comforting the other. On this boat are all of us, just like those disciples who spoke anxiously with one voice, saying, we are perishing. So we too have realized that we cannot go on thinking of ourselves, but only together can we do this. It is easy to recognize ourselves in this story. What is harder to understand is Jesus' attitude. While his disciples are quite naturally alarmed and desperate, he is in the stern, in the part of the boat that sinks first. And what does he do? In spite of the tempest, he sleeps on soundly, trusting in the Father. This is the only time in the Gospels we see Jesus sleeping. When he wakes up, after calming the wind and the waters, he turns to the disciples in a reproaching voice. Why are you afraid? Have you no faith? Let us try to understand, and what does the lack of the disciples' faith consist, as contrasted with Jesus' trust? They had not stopped believing in him. In fact, they called on him. But we see how they call on him. Teacher, do you not care if we perish? Do you not care, they think, that Jesus is not interested in them, does not care about them? One of the things that hurts us in our families most when we hear said is, do you not care about me? It is a phrase that wounds and unleashes storms in our hearts. It would have shaken Jesus too, because he, more than anyone, cares about us. Indeed, once they have called on him, he saves his disciples from their discouragement. The storm exposes our vulnerability and uncovers those false and superfluous certainties around which we have constructed our daily schedules, our projects, our habits, and priorities. It shows us how we have allowed to become dull and feeble the very things that nourish, sustain, and strengthen our lives and our communities. The tempest lays bare all our prepackaged ideas and forgetfulness of what nourishes our people's souls. All those attempts that anesthetize us with ways of thinking and acting that supposedly save us, but instead prove incapable of putting us in touch with our roots and keeping alive the memory of those who have gone before us. We deprive ourselves of the antibodies we need to confront adversity. And I think that is an amazing phrase. That what we do so often in our lives, in our public life, in our private lives, is we deprive ourselves of the antibodies we need to confront adversity. And that is how I will always remember the Holy Father, is as a great pastor, as a man who can speak the truth of the faith in a very profound way at a moment of great crisis. And so I would ask all of us, if you would join me in this prayer for Pope Francis. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Almighty and generous God, we thank you for your charity. Please grant your mercy upon Pope Francis so he may be restored from sickness and guide us in watchful care. We pray that you bless our Holy Father's doctors, nurses, and medical staff with wisdom and capability so that you may work through them to renew the health of your shepherd through Christ our Lord. Amen. And I think that as I conclude my remarks here, I'm not ever going to be perfect. I'm never ever going to get everything right. But what I will try to do is to try to be the kind of leader who helps our shared civilization build those true antibodies against adversity. And if the Holy Father can hear us, I hope he knows that there are thousands of faithful Catholics in this room and millions of faithful Catholics in this country who are praying for him as he weathers his particular storm. God bless you, and thank you.
Right after he was announced as Trump's vice president, here 7 months ago, July 16, 2024, I did a live stream. I did it with, I think Cooper joined me for that. Yeah, Cooper was here for that. And the title is Live Show the Conversion of J.D. Vance. I'll put the link in the description over on King Pilled Substack after this, along with all the links of the stuff I've gone through here today. And I strongly recommend you go listen to it. He wrote a pretty long article explaining like the thought process of his conversion. And it was one of those, if you have like the remotest spiritual intuition, and I like to think that I've got some, you can't read his writing and how sincere and vulnerable it is, how self-aware he is, and not come away with a tremendous amount of respect for him. He's an extremely spiritually in tune person. And it's starting to get to the point where when I see people who are talking shit about him and his family and his wife and his children and his connection to Peter Thiel and slandering Thiel in the same way, it is really, really starting to piss me off. Because it's just rank ignorance. It's just mouth breather shit. For example, like this here. If you guys don't get what's happening with this account, maybe you need some of the social intelligence. Someone commented yesterday and said that they come here for the social intelligence. Here's the social intelligence. This is an account run by subversives. And the great irony is that the dude who runs this account is a brown dude with extremely sketchy reports about his preferred hobbies. But it exists to post this sort of subversive stuff. J.D. Vance's mentor, Peter Thiel, on Christianity, quote, "Christianity, the main religion of the Western world, always takes the side of the victim. You should think of wokeness as ultra-Christianity or hyper-Christianity. This sounds like stuff that I was saying 4 years ago before I hardly knew who Peter Thiel was. I don't even know if I'd learned about René Girard at that point. And it's a very obvious thing. If you have two brain cells to rub together, you never get the thing we call wokeness except for in a fundamentally Christian culture. It's taking presumed Christian values and inverting them and pretending to maximize them. So it's deifying victimhood. The notion that there even was such a thing as a victim is something that came through Christianity. Part of Christianity, people didn't even think in these terms. That you could have an innocent victim. It's just power. Raw power. René Girard has, I'm coming up to the end of the time I have here for the stream, so I'm not going to do a full, I'm not going to go into this in great detail, but go study René Girard. Go listen to Jason Miranchuk. Go listen to David Gronowski. Listen to Luke Burgess. Talk about Girard and mimetic theory. Peter Thiel was the single, what's the term here? Studying under Girard, he was his, someone's going to have it for me. What's the term I'm looking for here? He was René Girard's a grad student. He was like his mentor. The term has completely escaped my mind. He was the only one that René Girard had. His protege would work. There's a specific term for it that I just, in the academic setting, that I can't even think of it. René Girard was a devout Catholic. And then he clerked for Antonin Scalia, who was a devout Catholic. This point that he's making here is that wokeness is a perversion of Christianity. And it's very obvious that this is true. Christianity, the main religion of the Western world, always takes the side of the victim. Yes. If someone is a victim, it's not like, oh no, actually we're the people who don't take the sides of victims. What? Of course. This is a uniquely Christian principle to actually say there could be an innocent victim, which is what a victim is. And that our responsibility is to protect those people. So this here is a clip I came across of Peter Thiel in 2020 talking about, there's an article here that I'm gonna have to save for next time. It's in the New York Times. Seeking God or Peter Thiel in Silicon Valley. When tech luminaries talk about their Christian faith, people listen. I'm going to share that one save that one for later. It's a very interesting read. But to give you an idea of where Peter Thiel is coming from, this does a good job. Like, honestly, so much of this is just complete laziness. All you have to do is spend a little bit of time listening to Peter Thiel talk. You have to spend a little bit of time listening to J.D. Vance talk. And it's incredibly clear that they are not remotely what they're characterized as.
Through my notes, there's a quote that you did an interview with the New Yorker magazine in 2011, and you said that you believe, here it is. You said, I believe Christianity to be true. I don't feel a compelling need to convince other people of that. I think that's somehow, at least somehow, self-contradictory. Because I think it's at the heart of believing that Christianity is true, that you would feel that compulsion to convince other people of that. So what did you mean by that, or do you mean the same thing by that? Do you feel the same way as you did then, or can you expand on that idea?
Well, maybe that was maybe that was not as artfully worded as I would have worded that today.
Were you afraid the New Yorker would call you out on your Christianity?
I think that in certain contexts, like in New York City, perhaps just saying that you're Christian is enough courage for people to have.
It does enough.
And so, I think there was this whole doctrine where you were not supposed to sin against the Holy Spirit. If you denied the Holy Spirit, you couldn't be saved. There was all these debates in the 3rd, 4th century about that, and we're probably not. It's probably not quite as bad as the Roman Empire under Diocletian or something like that, but one gets the sense that it's
even the references that he's making. You can tell this man has read the Church Fathers. If you've read the Church Fathers, if you've studied that era of church history, you'll recognize that he has as well.
I tend to think it's a decent amount of courage to just say that you're Christian, and so maybe not in a small town in Alabama, maybe you have to do more there. But if you're in Manhattan and that's all you say, in my book, that's plenty.
Would you agree that by following up by saying that you believe Christianity to be true, if that takes courage, would you say by saying I don't feel a compelling need to convince other people of that, that you have reduced the amount of courage?
Sure. I will concede I would not word it quite the same way today.
Well, of course, this is 2011. We were just kids then, I know. But when you say you think Christianity is true, what do you mean by that, if I can ask a really open question?
Well, I think it says, I think that, well, I believe in the resurrection of Christ. I think that...
The bodily resurrection.
The bodily resurrection of Christ. So I think that's the central miracle. I think that there is a way in which it gives us an understanding of the world. I think that it is, there's... I studied under René Girard, who's this professor at Stanford, who I think was one of the greater Christian thinkers of the 20th century. And I think that there's an anthropology in Christianity. There's an understanding of human nature where we're in the image of God. We're mimetic. We try to, and we need good role models. The only good role model for us is Christ. All other role models lead to interpersonal conflicts of one sort or another. And so I think there are sort of a lot of things about it that they're true. There's sort of ways we can, offer an apologetic for it. But it is, on some level, I often think that if you go back to the Old Testament 10 Commandments, I often think that the two most important ones are the first and last on the list. The first commandment and the 10th. The first one is you should only worship God. You should look up to the one true God. And then the 10th one is you should not look around at your neighbor. You should not covet the things that belong to your neighbor. And when you do not have a transcendent religious belief, you end up just looking around at other people. And I think that is sort of the problem with our sort of atheist liberal world, that it is just the madness of crowds. It's not reason. It's not rational. It's just mass insanity.
Does that tie into your idea in the
What he's saying here is that the modern liberal world that fancies itself so rational is actually insane because they've lost a sense of transcendence. That's the point that he's making here. Now, he's autistic and he's kind of an awkward, clumsy speaker, and he's very, very careful with his words. So when people talk about Peter Thiel as like, oh, he's some Zionist, deep subversive agent who drinks baby's blood or whatever, it just tells me that this is literally just an IQ issue. You're literally just not well-read enough or cognitively effective enough to listen to what he's saying and understand what he's saying.
Look, there's always You know, I always think if you sort of contrast evangelical Christian Bible study, where the outward-facing thing is often that people are somehow more moral or better, and then the inward-facing thing is that you're kind of sinful and that you have to. There's a lot of stuff you fix. If you were in the Bible study and said, you know, I figured out everything's perfect in my life, you probably haven't quite gotten the message. But whatever the sort of paradoxes and contradictions around that are, I think there's sort of a strange contrast with what I sort of describe as the atheist rationalist sort of group, where the outward-facing thing is that you're more rational than people, and the inward-facing thing is that you're not capable of thought at all, that it's just spaghetti code, and the mind is not capable of thought. And to use the sort of Thomistic medieval distinction, you know, the medievals believed in the weakness of the will, but the power of the intellect, and the moderns believe in the power of the will, but the weakness of the intellect. And so I think, you know, yes, I think faith and reason are compatible, and in fact, when you get rid of faith, you end up in a world where there's no reason either, and we're living in a much less rational world than we live.
When you get rid of faith, there is no reason either. How could you possibly tell me that this man is not a Christian? I want to highlight a couple of comments that were made in here related to this, and we'll finish the video. Georgie Castrati said, yes, if Thiel has the proclivities that he's said to have, he's actually living his life in accordance with how the church has advised for men of his proclivities to live. Yes. Remember, the person, the institution that publicly outed him got absolutely nuked. He is not proud of it. He does not want to be out. He doesn't want any pride. Andrew said, talking bad about J.D. Vance's wife and kids is very upsetting to me. I immediately think that critic is an imbecile or a subversive. Right. And it's one or the other. A lot of them, I think, are just imbeciles. I think they genuinely believe what they're saying, and they're just advertising that they're not very smart, that they just repeat things that they heard online. He says, the idea that there's a victim comes from the Christian concept of justice, which is night and day different from everything that came before it. Correct. You could never have wokeness without first having Christianity, because wokeness is a perverse derivation of Christianity. And that's the point he's making when he says it's like hyper-Christianity. It's like, it's Christianityism. The critique that the woke people are making is, at its root, hey, Christians, you're not being Christian enough. Because if you were Christian, then that would mean that you love everyone, which means you just accept everyone. And so when they tell you there's 89 different genders and that I'm changing my gender up every day, you need to just accept me because you're a good Christian. You're a good Christian, so we need to give infinite dollars to Honduran migrants to come live in our houses. They're being hyper-Christian. It's a very obvious point.
Lived in 100 years ago.
When you talk about, coveting, in your book, 0 to 1, you talk about how when you're trying to build a company and when they get stuck on competing with, Hertz, Avis, whatever it is, when they get stuck on competing, they lose sight of the larger goal, which is not just to defeat the other guy, but to do something greater or whatever. Do those ideas tie together, or am I just making that?
Sure. If you're too focused on your enemies, your rivals, your competition, it becomes very hard to form a team that's going to work on some transcendent goal or transcendent purpose. If you categorize it in terms of the 7 mortal sins of medieval Catholicism, I always think you can sort of debate which ones are the worst. Officially pride is supposed to be the worst. I always think you can use Gilligan's Island as sort of a mnemonic for this, where the professor is pride, and the skipper's anger, and Mr. Howell is greed, and Mrs. Howell is sloth. That's why she married Mr. Howell. Ginger is lust. Gilligan's always eating food. He's gluttony. But
Marianne?
Marianne's envy. She wants to be Ginger. I think in some ways that's the one I'm most worried about, the Mariannes in our society, and I believe that's the envy is the one mortal sin that is still completely taboo. All the others can be sort of turned into something positive. You know, greed is good, Gordon Gekko, whatever. You know, there's sort of ways you can flip all the others around. You know, envy is the one we still don't talk about, and as a result, I suspect it's the one that's somehow still sort of pervasive and the most destructive.
To bring things to a shallower level, briefly.
Oh, that was great. The that point, I think the reasoning behind the point he's making there at the end is that envy, so envy being the thing that is still it lurks behind everything because nobody talks about it, and envy is one of these things that pulls you into these mimetic traps because we don't know what we want, so we look around to see what other people want, and then we see, oh, they want that thing, and so then you're like, well, I want that thing, but he has that thing, so I want that thing from him. And this is what ultimately begins creating this rivalrous relationship that is going to escalate and escalate and escalate until you have a major conflict, which creates a victim. And historically, you create that victim, and everyone puts all of the sins onto the victim, and they all chimp out and bludgeon them and disembowel them and rip them apart and have an orgy of bloodlust and wild behavior. And this creates this big euphoric moment that reunites everyone and creates the new political formula that will guide them forward. And invariably, you begin turning that person into a god. This is why you'd have like the deformed, the person who has some major deformity or something. It's like there's something about them. The gods are connected to them. And so they actually get elevated into this godlike status, which is what has happened with wokeness, where you get, this is communism. What's the Mystery Grove tweet about how communism is when a bunch of like ugly, deformed freaks make it illegal to be attractive and successful? And that resentment, where you begin actually deifying the thing that's most repellent, which is taking that Christian recognition of the injustice of the victim, and it's subverting it and perverting it and saying, actually, no, it's good for them to be even more gross and even more weird and even more dysgenic. That's the point. We actually need more victims. We need to make people worse and worse, because instead of it being, you need to have sympathy for the victim and recognize that the victim indicates the necessity of justice, that things need to be put right again, made just. And it gets warped and perverted into, we're actually going to deify victimhood, which means subliminally we need to create more and more victims. You never get to that line of thought. You never get that sort of possession without first having the Christian premise. Something's playing. What was that? That was weird. Did you guys hear that? Someone was just playing in my ears. And so then, Georgie says, but Christ was the innocent victim, and that's the distinction. Once Christ is the innocent victim, now it becomes impossible to ignore the fact that there can be innocent victims, and that breaks that whole scapegoating mechanism. Which is why, as David Gornosky likes to say, we are constantly haunted by the cross. All right. I got to bounce, guys. Got to head over to the King Pill Discord, and we're going to be watching Fury. So I appreciate you guys showing up for the stream. Do me a favor and hit the like button. Thank you for the super chats, rounding it off for the month. We'll be starting a new month on Monday, and it'll be good to get back here and chat with you guys some more. I've already got some stories saved up and ready to go for that. So go follow me on Twitter at RealKingPilled, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. All those sorts of things. And I will catch you guys in the King Pill Discord in just a few minutes to watch Fury. Come join us, kingpill.com. I give you Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, I'm not